New information has come out about Elder Scrolls 6 and the upcoming roadmap for Bethesda's Elder Scrolls series, Fallout, and so much more. But there's a catch. Bethesda itself is in big trouble. This is Colteastwood. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about Elder Scrolls 6, the trajectory of what's happening for the series, and Bethesda's problem that needs to be addressed right now. If you end up enjoying this video, let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified of new content, and let's talk about Elder Scrolls 6 and what Bethesda is doing. Gaming journalist online PC Gamer recently interviewed the former lead writer for Elder Scrolls 6 and even Elder Scrolls 7, penning this the Empire Strikes Back of the Elder Scrolls series. But Bethesda Softworks is in major trouble, spread too thin across multiple studios with a ton of projects in the works that is going to allow possibly Elder Scrolls itself to suffer from these new changes. Before we get into what's happening with Elder Scrolls 6, we have to talk about where Bethesda Softworks was over the past 15 years and why Elder Scrolls 6 isn't in our hands right now. Back in 2015, when they launched Fallout 4, Bethesda Softworks had reprioritized. Originally, they had planned to immediately work on Elder Scrolls 6. This is why in 2018, we got this incredible reveal for the next Elder Scrolls game at their Bethesda event and never saw or heard a word about it for many years. Bethesda Softworks was in a really bad situation back in 2017 and 2018. In fact, Bethesda Softworks had positioned themselves to be purchased by a major publishing arm. And to make this happen, they had reprioritized their projects. And this is how we got Fallout 76, Wolfenstein Youngblood, and Redfall. Former lead writer Kuhlmann says in the interview that the team had started working on Fallout 76 just after the launch of Fallout 4 instead of Elder Scrolls 6. There's some important nuance that isn't explained in this interview because the team Bethesda Studios in Austin, Texas was the one that took over Fallout 76 full production development in 2018, just before it was ready to launch. This is the former Battlecry Studios. But Bethesda Softworks, they needed some online service-based games to generate revenue to make themselves look better to be purchased, and who of all could buy Bethesda Softworks but Microsoft and Xbox? But with the ZeniMax Online and Bethesda Austin, Texas team doing all of the heavy work for Fallout 76 and trying to recover that game, Bethesda Softworks was ready to work on something new, and they chose to work on Starfield. Starfield took about 8 years to develop, but there are a couple of major variables that extended the production life of Starfield and held off the start of development for Elder Scrolls 6. Number one, Starfield was a brand new IP, a whole new concept that wasn't Fallout or Skyrim in space, but had its own new full mechanics and also being overhauled on a brand new 2.0 version of the creation engine. But the biggest impact in this 8-year development was the worldwide pandemic shutdown of COVID. And that saw 2 to 3 years of delay as the game was put on hold. Industry insiders even speculated or heard rumors that Starfield would launch as early as 2021. What happened instead in 2020 was those studios were all sent home. And that will also help us illustrate what's going on with Elder Scrolls 6, which we'll get to in just a moment. Because it's not all doom and gloom. Kuhlmann, the former lead writer, had a bunch to reveal about the game and what was supposed to happen and the current state of Bethesda Softworks, especially with Todd Howard at the helm. Just before Bethesda was ready to be sold off to Microsoft and Xbox, they had a huge development boom stretched across 4 remote studios that were working on multiple IPs. Kurt says in their early days, it was a close group of developers, including Todd Howard in a basement office, making decisions and eating in the canteen together. But new offices opened and others were folded into ZeniMax Media. And Kurt says, when you get to that size, you can't just have people popping in to talk to Todd Howard about crucial game decisions and design criteria. He even says at that time that Todd Howard had become a bureaucratic leader looking over large design decisions that were filtered between different project managers before they ever got to design directors and the actual people working on mechanics for the game and making crucial decisions. Kurt Kuhlmann goes on to explain that post-Skyrim, he says, I was obviously one of the old-timers there and had a lot of experience. Bruce Nesmith and I had been co-leads on Skyrim. I think most people would call it a successful project, so I thought it wasn't unreasonable for me to think that I could be a successful lead for The Elder Scrolls 6. It wasn't just my expectation. I had been told that was going to happen. Todd Howard told Kurt Kuhlmann that he would have a very important role in the project once Elder Scrolls 6 started development, but then eventually said that wasn't going to be the case. But Kurt Kuhlmann explains that so much had changed since 2011 when the Elder Scrolls Skyrim was worked on. Kurt Kuhlmann explains that he had in his mind that the Elder Scrolls 6 was meant to be an Empire Strikes Back of the series. He said the Talmor, the Elven supremacists, would ultimately have control over Tamriel and set up the sequel for Elder Scrolls 7. He says he saw evil triumphing as a welcome alternative to the Chosen One idea that Bethesda often relied on. In Elder Scrolls 6, we would secretly save the day by protecting an heir to the throne and preserve hope for the future, but overall it looks like the Talmor are on the march. But now looking at the roadmap of Bethesda prioritizing Fallout and trying to get Elder Scrolls 6 off the ground, he doesn't think it's a good idea to set up Elder Scrolls 6 ending with a major cliffhanger and saying, we'll see you in 10 to 15 years. In fact, right now, the fans, the gaming media, and all people looking at Elder Scrolls 6 are expecting it to come out sometime in late 2028 or even 2030. And this is because this has been the norm for Bethesda over the past decade. Looking at a measuring stick for Starfield taking over 8 years and thinking that if they announced Elder Scrolls 6 in 2018, it's probably not coming out till the end of the decade in 2028 or later. The problem is, like we said earlier, Starfield was a whole new franchise and IP development, and it was also built in the middle of a global pandemic. Todd Howard has said that Elder Scrolls 6 is a long way off, but leaks have surfaced that give fans an insight into the game coming out possibly even earlier. It's not far-fetched to believe that Elder Scrolls 6 could come out in the next 12 to 18 months, maybe at the end of 2026 or sometime before the end of 2027. But this is completely impossible to believe for fans who have seen Bethesda struggle to get their games out the door, get them actually ironed out and in a good fashion, and deliver those expectations. And Skyrim is an expectation that Bethesda will never reach again. Elder Scrolls 6 is supposed to be set in the Hammerfell region, high ship battles, wooden ship building, settlement and fortress building, and so much more that I've broken down in an earlier video a few weeks ago. Microsoft has put massive priority on Bethesda to release Elder Scrolls 6 and start working on the Fallout series. In fact, they've even stretched out beyond Bethesda. There is a lot on their plate, but Todd Howard himself is busy working on a very successful TV show. But it's clear that Todd Howard is now taking an overarching support role as a creative lead, and he's not in the trenches getting all of the design decisions done and down to the people who actually make them happen. There has to be a middle ground between what has happened in the past and what is happening right now. We have a lot to look forward to for the next Elder Scrolls game, and hopefully a revitalized Bethesda that we fell in love with so long ago. This is Colteastwood. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you want to learn more about Elder Scrolls 6, the setting, gameplay details, some of the mechanics that they're adding, and what they're doing to overhaul that engine, check out the video I'll have linked here at the end of the description. I'm a big Bethesda fan, like a lot of you, but mostly a big fan of what they've done so long ago. But I've also got a lot of stuff to discuss here on the channel that might surprise you, that you might be missing out on right now. If you ended up enjoying this video, let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified of new weekly content. If you want to further support what we're doing here, you can hit the join button below. That'll get you early access to videos before they go up and so much more. Check out the XNC podcast. That's a weekly podcast we do on Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll break down all of the gaming news, talk about all of this in great detail, and learn stuff along the way as it comes in from insiders and reports. You can also check that out on Apple and Spotify podcasts if you want to listen to that on demand. Let me know what you think about Elder Scrolls 6 and the current trajectory of Bethesda. Can they turn it around? Are there going to be people who can recreate that magic that we saw in the 2010s? Let me know in the comments section. And while you do that, as I always say, please be nice.